we're gonna use a shape more like this to be able to fold the cut open, and then a ball or a droplet bit to be able to help us take it from that to more smooth, okay? So we're gonna use smaller bits inside the cracks, and then we won't use any of these carbide ones here in this 101 course, but we will use an extra coarse and then a coarse diamond pedicure bit. And the reason is you've got to graduate from working with the more aggressive when you're bringing it down and then smooth, so you don't have any catches on their skin when they slide in the sheets. Again, I like a droplet shape, or you can use a ball bit, and then this is like it's one bit that they actually like to call like a unicorn bit, but it's kind of the shape of it that's that longer cone that's not too pointy. We don't want a sharp point on the end, a little bit of a soft curve, and we will go forward and reverse. So let me grab my e-file. I'm gonna stay at 15,000 RPMs in forward for right now. We're gonna roll the cracks open. So let me show you here. Like when I pinch it, see how it pinches open? There's no blood. She's actually got a little bit of dirt because she went gardening and everything. Even though we sprayed and cleaned her foot, it just kind of has stained. Down here, notice that little shelf there when I pinch her foot that goes from supple to dry. Just a little evaluation. It's kind of in that 7 across the foot, little crack going there, just along the outside edges. She doesn't really have any calluses in by her arch. And then these are her deep cuts. And then up top on her toe, there's not much going on. So what we're gonna do, she's so good, she wants you to see so well, so we're turning her foot. We're gonna start working on forward, which means everything is gonna roll off to the left, okay? And notice how I'm holding my e-file. You can hold it 2 different ways. Overhand like this, or I'm balancing it against my thumb, is a really great option to kind of roll open your cuts or your cracks to the left, to flap open that. Now, another way you can hold it is just like a pencil, like you would otherwise, and run the tip of the bit down through the crack, okay? I'm following those cracks and I'm gently tapping. See how I put the tip down, and it helps roll open any of that excess edge. I like to call it, it's like a Grand Canyon, and we're rolling it open and softening that cliff. Then we're gonna come in, see these tiny ones that are up here? So we've got these bigger ones that obviously we can roll open, and you can even lay the bit down in it. But these little tiny ones that got some dirt in them, I'm just running my bit along the little cracks and slowly opening them up. What am I asking the client the whole time? I'm like, hey, how's that feel? And they're like, it's good, I'm okay. Let me know if anything's uncomfortable along the way. Another thing you'll know is I'm pulling the skin nice and taut before I go down with my e-file. My 2 hands are pulling it tight so I have control over the situation and I don't end up pulling the skin too far and causing pain and causing it to tear. Going up to the toe here. I like to think about like working your way around the full outside of the foot. This process really cannot be rushed. So we're running our tip down the cracks and rolling it open on the left side with forward, and we're gonna go all the way around the foot and do that. There's another little method you can do where I call it planing, where see how I'm running along the crack here? It's tricky to see. Let me see if I can just along the crack like that. But see, I run the whole bit flat. Let me see if I can get a better angle. There we go. Turn them to the side here. So I'm going to take the bit and go against the grain. See how I'm laying it flat? What that's going to do is flap open any of those little cuts I maybe could not see. And then I take the tip and run them along the cut and flap it open to the left. So you've got the tip going into flap open, and you can also plane across against the grain to help lift open any of those flats that might be causing cracks in the future, because it's excess skin built on the top. And a lot of those you just see they want to exfoliate away right away. I'm going to note here, I have not introduced any kind of callus softener on these calluses. Let me rotate her hair and get a better angle for her heel. There we go. So again, I'm just pulling the tip along the little cracks wanting to form, and it's opening it up to the left. When we go in reverse in a moment, it'll open it up to the right. And I'm doing this without any product introduced, and I'm pulling it down along the tip. Now, something I can note down here is you can plane on their heel against the grain, and you'll see it open up cuts, and then I go in and work on those little cuts. They're not open wounds cuts, so cut's a hard one, but I'll grab it like this, thumb above, and I'll come down against the grain, and you see all these little loose edges that would have caught in her socks or on their shoe sheets or anything like that loosen up, and then I can address if any of them are turning into cracks, I should say, instead of cuts. So that's working pretty good. The curve is kind of rounded there, so I'm just trying to make sure I'm going against it when I do this. Let's rotate and see if we can get a good angle on this side. So planing here, there we go. I'm making sure she's comfortable even though she's helping us out here. And I'll plane and then go along the cut down through it, or the crack. And then I'm gonna squeeze. See the suppleness? There's almost like a shelf of where it stops bending, and I'm trying to make sure I am reducing dead skin cells that are not allowing the foot to move and be supple, but I don't want to make her sore, so I'm not going to overdo it. Okay, now let's take a look at my e-file. I'm going to stop it completely before I change directions, like it is not moving. Then I'm going to go in reverse. No, I'm going to stay at 15,000 RPMs because this is comfortable for her. If she had diabetes, if she was sensitive, I'm going to bring my speed or my RPMs down. I'm probably going to start between 8 and 10,000 RPMs. If it's excessively overbuilt and you feel like you still have good control, I would turn the speed up a little bit to let the bit do the work for you, because otherwise what we run into is people will tend to start putting more pressure into the skin and then damaging live tissue. We're gonna plane up the side of her foot there, and notice things did not flip open, so she does not build a ton there like she does on these other hot spots. Okay, I'm in reverse. So again, you've got your grips on top, or you can go underneath, either one, wherever you feel like you have the most control. And I'm gonna run my tip of my bit down those cracks, and notice how a lot of that excess skin just goes flying off. Oh, I lost a little bit of focus here. There we go. Just following it, and now it's opening up those skin cells to the right if that crack has it, so we've really exfoliated it out. One thing to note if you do turn the speed up is keep really even control of your e-file. When working around cracks or these edges or the ball of foot specifically, or the toe, sometimes you can get caught in one spot and then it goes too hard and it hurts. It causes heat and it can cause damage. I'm just going to slide up here to the toe and show you, kind of so like on this edge it can catch. So you want to keep your pressure even and light and just in control. Anywhere I see a little crack, I run the tip through it just to make sure. Over here too. And I know I still have flaps of skin left that need to be lifted off, but right now we've taken it from this to this, okay? So we've rolled open both sides of the crack over there. Let's go on the heel and roll open so I can pull it to my right. In reverse, you can pull it to your right if you want and plane to the right, and make sure I'm opening up all that dry edge. Or here, see how I went up along it and it just exfoliated off all of that. So we're gonna get a nice supple result. Let me try over here. And we do have our bigger pedicure bits to go still, so I know some of this big work will be done with them, but this longer shaped diamond bit really helps me. I'm gonna switch it out here, I think, to this droplet size bit. It can be a ball bit as well. This is medium grit. You can go to fine if there's not as much built up. Absolutely change your grits of your bits. So we've gone from this to this, and now we're gonna use this and put kind of the head of that bit down in that crack and just flatten it out a little bit more, only on that excess buildup skin that is still contributing to that splitting. So here we go. I just like to run it, and I'm in reverse still. If you're comfortable with forward, you can switch it around, but this feels really comfortable with me. And I'm just putting the ball down in those cracks, and you can see how much just really flies out. Exfoliating here. Think of this as almost like this is your target practice, like you're targeting specific spots here, and then we will go through and smooth the whole foot like we would do in a normal pedicure, except for we're going to use the e-file, and it's just going to create such a better result. Now I need to check this. I don't want to go too far. So I just sprayed my callus reducer on it to take a look. See how well her heel is moving, how supple it is. I'm just going to grab a couple loose ends here, but that is looking good. Look at that. Look at the color comes in when I push on it, the blood flow. I am happy with that. I'm not going to overdo it with this little guy. It'll come in, and that edge we've been dying to take off. I use the ball of that bit and slide it right in there, and it's just really going to reduce kind of our hills and valleys we've created. You're going to see a little bit of lumpiness almost in the callus, and now we're kind of smoothing those out a little bit so that we can end up ultimately with a really smooth result, which is the ultimate goal. And I'm feeling with my thumb. You notice how I touch this a lot. One, I'm feeling for heat. Two, I'm feeling to see if skin is catching and pulling anywhere that maybe my eyes aren't seeing. I want to feel with my hands to make sure as I work on these calluses that can catch that there isn't anything I'm missing. And yeah, you can feel it through the glove. You absolutely can feel this through the glove. And I am still at 15,000 RPMs. It's been a very comfortable speed for her, and we're getting everything done. I would reduce it if it felt tender. If I felt like it wasn't getting something done and wasn't whisking away the dry skin cells, like it was too thick of callus, I could go up a little bit as well in speed, but I'm not going to go up in my pressure. I'm going to keep it very even and light and just let the tool do the work for me. Again, I'm going to remind you, make sure you're pulling their skin nice and tight from each side so that you don't get soft skin caught up where you're trying to exfoliate dry skin away. So I'm going to change my grip there and just come in. I switched my e-file, by the way, right there to forward. So I stopped it all the way so it wasn't spinning in reverse at all, so that I helped my e-file last as long as possible. Then turned it in forward and came in with it. And I'm just going along those edges of those deep cuts, making sure I'm really reducing them. And they're getting smooth. Feeling with my thumb, pulling the skin so it's nice and tight, and just targeting those little cuts that really we've done a lot. It just looks so dry right now. So it takes a little bit of a trained eye. And if you need to, slide back to the very beginning where we saw those flaps or those cuts. Be careful right here as we go into the ball. Remember that catching I talked about? Make sure you're doing light, even, little taps so you don't catch. Yeah, so you could go back and see how bad it is. But look, here's a good test. I'm going to squeeze it. See how it doesn't split? Before we had splits and cuts down in there. So it's becoming supple. We're exfoliating it enough. That is a perfect test to use to make sure you've taken it down enough, but you're not going too far. Once it can start moving and it's not catching and pushing into those cuts anymore, you've probably done enough, unless you can just see little pieces of skin that maybe need to be exfoliated away that you want to catch or smooth out. So we are just about there with this part. I'm gonna go in, I switched it again. I just need to check one little edge I saw. Again, remember to book yourself enough time so you can take your time going against the grain, flapping it back if you need to. There we go. Alrighty. It's looking really nice. Nothing is catching right there. There was a little edge. Okay, that feels good. I'm gonna catch it one more spot right here because that's where a callus wants to build, and feel it and talk to her about how that feels and run my thumb over it. Okay, I think we have smoothed this pretty darn good. I'm just tagging a couple little cracks that have a couple little white pieces of skin that are dead sticking up. Okay, feels smooth, heel feels pretty smooth. So now we're gonna introduce a callus softener. If you're using like a gel-like one, that's fine. What you're gonna wanna do is put this on. Now, if you have a hot area that's really, really built up, you can always put some of this on a little piece. Oh, look at that. See, I'm showing you the urea percentage. Putting it on a little piece and targeting that spot. But that urea sloughs off the dead skin cells and holds moisture in for the live skin cells, and I love that. But yes, you could always take a little wipe, soak it in your callus softener, and put it on the callus if it was really heavy. This is a good way. You can see the foot actually looks quite supple here. And while it sits to do some of its magic, let's talk about these bits. So yes, I'm gonna start with the extra coarse, and we will actually smooth with the coarse. And we're gonna use this bit to our advantage. Now you see the little holes, that allows for some of the heat to dissipate, but you do have to move it so that it doesn't get too hot in one spot. And we've got it to open a little bit, but we're gonna now smooth out the bulk of it so that we don't have a crack and it can stay flat. So I'm gonna slide this in my e-file and take a little look. You can see that the grain or the footprint goes across that way. So I'm gonna come down over it opposite, just rolling it there. I don't have my e-file on, and I can even use the tip of the bit in some of those extra little cracks and then smooth over to really get a smooth effect. So that'll work really well there, and then we'll come with the grain and smooth it. Then starting forward, I'm keeping 15,000 RPMs. If this callus is super thick and built up, go up a little bit in speed. Now I'm going against it first, and I'm pulling her foot tight, like I have her toe pulled up so that it's not gonna catch any live tissue and hurt it. And just little taps at first, and then you can smooth over it against the grain. And if I'm like, ooh, I wanna come back to this area, but I'm worried it's getting a little bit warm, I'll move to another area and then come back. That way I maintain my client's comfort, which is super, super important to me. And I'm gonna pull it back. And I am, again, checking with my thumb there for feel, for anything catching. And I'm asking my client, hey, how's your comfort? And she's telling me, super good. And I'm gonna go against it a little bit more. I am taking my time here so you can see what I'm doing. I can also change my grip if this is more comfortable, and put your thumb against them so you have some sort of balance, and gently pull down. Now up here, you don't want to get it caught, it'll hurt. So light taps, and then you can kind of come across and then smooth it out against the grain. Look how many skin cells are just exfoliating right away with the light touch. We're no overworking, none of that scrubbing with your shoulder and your elbow and your arm and all of that. And you can see when I went across the middle of her ball or foot there, no skin cells came off because it wasn't excess. Now here I'm squishing it and it's getting pretty pliable, but I'm just gonna move against the grain or planing like we did earlier, but with this bit. And look how many of those little edges, it just pops right up. So I'm just gonna gently pull a few more of those. Her heel's actually looking pretty good. It doesn't seem like it has any thick calluses built up, but there's for sure some skin cells that need to come down so that they don't build up here, because they're just so easily whisking away here. So I'm pulling against the grain. And then on her foot, this is kind of against the grain. So you kind of have to watch the pattern like a fingerprint. You have to watch how it swirls. and go against it and then with it. Let's reposition here. Now I'm planing across this, and even here where she had that little cut or crack, I should say, and working our way down. And it's just exfoliating really, really well. You know what? Let's go right there. There we go. I'm gonna go down the edge of her foot. And across there, usually it's like almost like in a 7, or in this case a reverse 7, that the impact is. So I just always run across it. And if a lot of skin cells don't come off of it, I'm not going to worry about it. Just go along that edge real quick. Okay. And I'm just planing, and not a ton is coming off. I'm just changing my angles to really smooth any of those skin cells that are working their way off the foot. And I'm going to feel it. No catches. Okay. I'm going to take this. Look at all that skin cell buildup. And you know what you might want to do before you go to the next foot is you might want to take your wire brush and get those skin cells off so it can work efficiently. Or better yet, have a couple sets of bits so that when one builds up, you have a nice, ready, sharp one. Just a little wire brush, by the way, to work on the next foot. Okay, now I am switching to my I'm switching to my coarse for my extra coarse. So we're gonna smooth now. I'm putting a little more product on. If you wanna put a little more on, you can as well. Let it sit for a minute. If it's the gel type, wipe off the excess before you start going so you can see what the skin surface is doing. Now look, there's a couple little cracks here, which tells me I need to go back to my smaller bit for a minute. I'm telling you right now, dry pedicures are not one size fits all. I'm trying to help you learn how to think critically and book yourself enough time to be able to do all the little things and go back and forth if you need to. So tip in, and then I plane over it, and that helped catch those just enough where I'm like, okay, I think we can move back to the pedicure bit. So we're gonna smooth it. So we're gonna go more with the grain of the skin, okay? So lock your bit in place. And as I do that, let's talk a little bit about making sure you don't go too far so that you're checking the suppleness of the skin, okay? And how you're gonna price these. So this is a special type of pedicure. It needs to at least be $1 a minute, okay? So I would say if your typical pedicure, say you take an hour and it's 60, I would probably say this, after all the skills you're gonna practice and everything, needs to at least be 1.5 that. And then you're probably gonna book your first one for maybe 2 hours. And it's going to be a real specialized service. It's going to be at least 120, maybe 150. And then after that, you can get to maintenance ones where they're like 45 minutes and you're charging 60 and they're happy as can be. These are just suggested numbers. I know across the board and everywhere it's very different, but take what you would charge for a wet pedicure and go probably at least 1.5 times that for your first time. And then for their first service. And then after that, you can bring it down into real world and make sure you're paying yourself more for learning this, or investing in the products and tools, and for investing in yourself, make sure you are getting paid for it. Now I'm gonna change. I'm trying to go with the grain of the foot here and pull any of these excess these are the little catchies. This is what catches in the sheets and on the socks. So we're just smoothing those babies out. I'm continuing to ask her comfort level, and it's amazing how much skin still wants to come off, right? And this is where you as a professional need to go, okay, I'm gonna feel it. See what I'm doing here? I'm watching, there's a couple little edges, but I'm watching to see if skin is really sloughing off now when I rub my hand over it, or if we've pretty much taken off all we need to because it's now more pliable. That one felt pretty good, so I'm just gonna run along this bottom edge on this side and make sure we're smoothed out. All right, running my hand over it. It is supple, it is moving. It's not really sloughing off a ton of skin just a little bit here and there, so I'll go in with my e-file. But you've got to get into it here, my dear friends. You've got to feel it and see, okay, I think that is not sloughing too much off when I go through. The product I'm using actually doesn't have to be washed off, but this is a great test. Notice how I'm doing it up here too. Like, is tons of skin sloughing off still? If not, you're likely done. You don't want to go too far and make them sore. Then you can take out your bit and scrub it down with a wire brush. And this is where you could introduce like hot towels to wipe down the foot if you want. I'm just gonna rub through and start checking the suppleness. She's got good flexibility going. We don't have cracks forming from pressure. Everything feels really comfortable. There's not a ton of skin sloughing off. I use a mousse for the massage. You could use a lotion. You can use whatever you want. I will tell you this right now. I got too much in my hands because I get enough to go all the way up the leg and realized I'm only showing you the foot. So I'm going to try to push some of it up the leg and just talk a little bit about your goals here with the massage. 1, you want to push it into those hot spots. You want to massage it in circular small motions and really make sure that moisture is going in where we need it. 2, stretch the foot out a little bit, okay? They might have been a little stressed trying to hold it for you in certain ways. I always like to put a little fist at the arch and roll it out, and that helps them so much, okay? But you're introducing moisture again. You are bringing them back to the little bit of that pampering edge. I'm going to encourage you to use long motions and small little motions and just combine them and get their foot nice and supple. Oh, that looks so good. I'm so happy with these results. Let me turn her here and we will take a look. I'm going to stretch her foot out a little bit, rub the lotion in. Oh, look at the ball of her foot. No more catches. Such a good result. Thank you for joining me today for this Dry Pedicure with e-file course. Please practice these things on yourself. Please